Level 1, the Psycho. A Level 1 villain is chaos in human form. There is no ideology, no system, and no long-term vision. This villain does not want to change the world, he only wants to release his inner damage. His actions are emotional and impulsive, not strategic or planned. Violence at this level is deeply personal. Every act is a reaction, not a move on a bigger board. The Psycho does not seek power, control, or legacy. He lives in the moment, which makes him unpredictable. And that unpredictability is what creates fear. From an audiovisual perspective, this villain works best in close-ups. Shaky framing, tight shots, and dark lighting reflect an unstable mind. Dialogue is minimal, expressions and body language carry the weight. The Psycho feels like a product of society, yet he rejects every rule it runs on. The audience tries to understand him but cannot truly relate. And that is the defining truth of Level 1. This villain destroys, he does not rule. Example, brief Joker, early portrayals. Level 2, the Gangster. A Level 2 villain is no longer chaos, he is control. Unlike the Psycho, this villain understands structure. He operates inside an existing system and learns how to bend it in his favor. Crime is not emotional here, it is organized, transactional, and calculated. The gangster's motivation is power in its most tangible form: money, territory, influence, and respect. He wants to own spaces, people, and outcomes. Every action is a step toward dominance, not a random outburst. Violence still exists, but it is purposeful. It sends messages. It establishes hierarchy. At this level, ambition is clear but limited. The gangster does not want to change the world, he wants to rule his corner of it. His vision is vertical, not global. That limitation is important, because it defines why he can be powerful but never transcendent. From an audiovisual standpoint, this villain thrives in wide shots and controlled framing. Clean compositions, strong posture, crews in the background, and symbols of wealth reinforce authority. Dialogue matters now. Words are used as weapons, threats are subtle, promises are dangerous. The audience understands this villain more easily than the Psycho. His logic makes sense, even if his morality does not. But sympathy remains limited, because his goals are purely self-serving. This is the core truth of Level 2. The gangster controls systems, but he does not question them. Example, brief Tony Montana. Level 3, the Revolutionary. A Level 3 villain is no longer driven by chaos or control, he is driven by belief. This villain has an ideology. He sees the world as broken, unfair, and corrupted, and he believes that destruction is not evil, but necessary. In his mind, he is not the villain of the story, he is the correction. Unlike the gangster, the revolutionary does not want territory or wealth. He wants change. His enemy is not a person, it is a system. Governments, institutions, social structures, and traditions become his targets. Violence becomes symbolic. Every attack carries meaning. Every action is a message. This is where morality becomes dangerous. The revolutionary justifies cruelty with logic. He does not act out of emotion, and he does not act for pleasure. He acts for purpose. Suffering becomes acceptable if it serves the cause. Death becomes a statistic, not a tragedy. From an audiovisual perspective, this villain is built through contrast. Speeches against silence. Crowds against isolation. Symbols against faces. Wide shots of movements, flags, fires, and masses of people create scale. The camera no longer follows just a man, it follows an idea. Dialogue is ideological, not personal. His words sound like truth, not threats. This is why the audience becomes conflicted. Parts of his logic feel reasonable. Some of his anger feels justified. The line between villain and revolutionary begins to blur. But this is the danger of level 3, belief without limits. When ideology becomes more important than human life, morality collapses. The cause becomes more valuable than people. This is the defining truth of this level. The revolutionary does not seek power, he seeks justification. Example, brief Killmonger. Level 4, the fallen hero. A level 4 villain is not born in darkness, he falls into it. This villain begins as a protector, a believer, or a hero figure with genuine moral purpose. At some point, he stands on the right side of the story. What makes him dangerous is not evil intent, but emotional collapse. The defining feature of the fallen hero is the turning point. A single loss, betrayal, or irreversible failure fractures his belief in the world. What once felt just now feels broken. What once deserved protection now feels unworthy. The villain does not wake up wanting to destroy, he arrives there step by step. Unlike the revolutionary, this villain does not fight for an idea. He fights against pain. His actions are reactions to trauma, not strategies for change. Power becomes a substitute for control he once lost. Violence becomes a language for grief he cannot process. From an audiovisual perspective, this level thrives on contrast. Past and present are constantly placed side by side. Warm lighting in memories. Cold, desaturated tones in the present. The camera lingers longer, allowing silence to replace dialogue. The villain's face carries history. Every scar has context. Dialogue at this level is emotional, not ideological. When he speaks, it sounds personal. Regret, anger, and disappointment sit beneath every word. The audience does not fear this villain as much as they mourn him. Sympathy becomes unavoidable, even when his actions turn monstrous. The tragedy of the fallen hero is inevitability. Once the moral line is crossed, return becomes nearly impossible. Redemption feels close but unreachable. The villain knows he is lost, but believes the world deserves to be lost with him. This is the core truth of level 4. The fallen hero does not choose evil, he surrenders to it. Example, brief Anakin Skywalker. Level 5, the mastermind. Level 5 villains are no longer defined by chaos, survival, or ideology, they are defined by intellect. The mastermind operates above the emotional impulses of earlier levels. Every move is calculated. Every risk measured. Every outcome anticipated. This is the villain whose weapon is strategy itself. Unlike the fallen hero or revolutionary, the mastermind's motivation is not raw emotion or moral crusade. It is control. Control over people, events, and systems. Every encounter with the hero is a chess match, where pawns are sacrificed for larger gains. The mastermind does not act out of revenge or grief, he acts to execute a vision only he fully comprehends. Violence at this stage is rarely impulsive. It is deliberate. Each action communicates dominance, precision, and inevitability. The mastermind is the villain who shapes the battlefield before it even exists. Heroes may believe they have agency, but they are always a few steps behind. This calculated dominance makes him far more terrifying than raw force, because his power lies in intellect, not brawn. From an audiovisual perspective, this villain thrives in controlled, cinematic framing. Wide shots of meticulously arranged plans. Timelines and blueprints juxtaposed with quiet, poised movements. Dialogue is minimal but piercing. Each line carries double meaning. Words are weapons as lethal as any physical attack. Subtle facial expressions reveal the depth of thought and intent. The audience experiences awe mixed with fear. Unlike the psycho, they can follow the logic. Unlike the revolutionary, they see no moral justification. Unlike the fallen hero, there is no lingering sympathy. The mastermind embodies a frightening clarity, a villain who cannot be reasoned with, whose goals are precise, and whose patience is infinite. The mastermind is also the first villain whose defeat cannot rely purely on force. Victory against him requires intellect, timing, and insight. Heroes often struggle because they are fighting a mind that anticipates them at every turn. His presence dominates the narrative even when he is off-screen. This is the defining truth of Level 5. The mastermind does not rush, does not rage, does not fear, he calculates, and inevitability follows him. Example, Brief Thanos. Level 6, the symbol. Level 6 villains are no longer individuals in the traditional sense, they become ideas. They are larger than life, representing concepts, movements, or fear itself. At this stage, the villain's identity is secondary to what they signify. The world does not just fear them, the world internalizes their presence. Even absence does not diminish their power. Unlike the mastermind, the symbol's control is not over events or people directly, it is over perception. They influence culture, ideology, or collective consciousness. Their actions ripple far beyond immediate consequences. Every move, every message, every appearance becomes a lesson, a warning, or a rallying cry. Violence is no longer merely tactical or personal, it is symbolic. Each act carries meaning, creating myths that outlast the villain's physical presence. From an audiovisual perspective, the symbol thrives on imagery and repetition. Masks, costumes, emblems, and recurring visuals convey ideology without words. Crowds, monuments, and visual motifs reinforce the scale of influence. Wide, cinematic shots show the reach of their symbolism, while close-ups reveal the quiet intensity of the individual behind the mask. Dialogue is scarce and deliberate, often philosophical or cryptic. Every word reinforces the idea, not the person. The audience's perception becomes part of the villain's power. Sympathy, fear, fascination, or outrage, all fuel the symbol. By transcending individual motives, the villain becomes timeless. They no longer need to fight in every scene, their legend fights for them. Heroes are challenged not just physically, but ideologically. Stopping the symbol requires confronting belief itself. This is the defining truth of Level 6. The symbol is not just a villain, they are the embodiment of an idea that refuses to die. Example, Brief V, from V for Vendetta. V is more than a man, he is a movement, a philosophy, a symbol of resistance. Even when he is gone, his ideology continues to challenge and inspire. Level 7, the God Complex. Level 7 villains are beyond ideology, beyond strategy, and beyond symbolism, they see themselves as above all. They are not merely humans, they are self-declared arbiters of life, death, and morality. To them, humanity is flawed, predictable, and expendable. They do not play by rules because they are the rules. They do not answer to consequences because they consider themselves infallible. Unlike the symbol, whose power lies in ideas, the God Complex villain's power lies in absolute authority and detachment. Every action, whether subtle or catastrophic, reflects their belief in their own supremacy. Their violence is total, deliberate, and often philosophical. It is not merely tactical, not merely ideological, it is divine judgment delivered on their terms. Heroes are insignificant, systems are irrelevant, and resistance is an exercise in futility. From an audiovisual perspective, this villain commands scale. Massive environments, towering shadows, and godlike framing emphasize their omnipotence. Cinematic techniques highlight their detachment, slow, deliberate movements, minimal close-ups, and overwhelming wide shots. Every scene positions the villain as the axis of the universe. Dialogue is sparse but monumental. Every word echoes authority, judgment, and inevitability. Silence often speaks louder than words, reinforcing dominance and presence. The audience experiences awe, fear, and even existential dread. Unlike all previous levels, sympathy is nearly impossible. The God Complex villain challenges not just the hero, but the very idea of humanity's moral compass. Defeat is not just physical, it requires confronting beliefs, power structures, and sometimes philosophical inevitability. Even in failure, the impact of their presence endures, shaping narratives and legends long after they are gone. This is the defining truth of Level 7. The God-complex villain does not exist within the world, they define it. Example, brief Darkseid. Darkseid is more than a conqueror, he is a force of inevitability. His mere existence shapes the universe's order, and every confrontation with him challenges not just heroes, but the rules of existence itself.